here with Ken Stevens from Xerox, and we've got another episode of Big Data TV. And Ken, it's great to be talking with you today.
Oh, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So today we're going to be talking a little about you and your role at Xerox. So why don't we start off with just that. What do you do at Xerox, and how does Xerox play in the big data space?
Certainly. I'm Senior Vice President with Xerox. I've been here for about 6 years, and I manage cloud services for the corporation globally. And what that really means is the foundation. So I have all the infrastructure components and all of the standard package service offerings that we sell in the cloud. So that's what I do.
Great. And talk a little about Xerox. You know, I spend a lot of time with startups, of course, and mid-sized companies. But how do you see some of the players like Xerox or Oracle, IBM? And we've seen a lot of announcements on cloud cost pricing from Amazon and Google. Where does Xerox fit into the whole ecosystem?
Certainly. It's an interesting question in many respects because, Xerox has been, they sell printers and MFD devices forever and ever, and certainly everybody knows them for that. But if you think about it, they sell through the channel. They also sell directly to customers, and so they have a really fabulous brand, as we all know. And so if you think about the larger corporation, they're very well known. They have very good relationships. They are in the IT space, even though it's a little bit different than you might think about. And they have multiple paths to market, like I said, in the channels and et cetera. And so they moved into the services business, or Xerox moved into the services business about 4 years ago. And so they've gotten bigger and bigger, and now a little over 50% of the revenue in Xerox comes from services. So it's like 52 or 53%. So it's actually quite substantial.
And when you say services, just for my viewers, that can mean a bunch of different things. It could mean people providing services. It could mean computing services. How do you define, what services are?
Yeah, excellent question. So certainly IT services, like IT outsourcing services is clearly one. And that means traditional ITO services as well as cloud services, both, as well as business process services as well. And they sell like managed print, as an example, in the cloud, as well as and direct to customers as well. And so if you look at just from a business process perspective, Xerox is the largest business process company in the world. And so quite substantially in the business process space.
Got it. Okay, great. So talk a little about, news of the last week or two is Amazon and the Google price wars on, cloud costs and so on. Where do you kind of see all this going? I mean, is storage going to be free eventually? Are we just in a moment in time where we're, seeing some cost cutting, or, what does this all really mean for users and companies that want to store large amounts of data and process it?
Yeah, certainly. That's a great question, and we hope that it's not free. For those of us who provide services, we hope it doesn't go to free. But we certainly appreciate that it is very competitive right now. And we have a new scenario, really, in that hardware manufacturers, and not any in particular, but you think of like the IBMs or the HPs or whomever, have made a lot of money for a long time selling hardware. And they buy services or hardware, from companies like Intel, right? And others, right? And
right.
And they assemble that with their own pieces and package and provide it. Well, the challenge that the industry is facing is a lot of that hardware has standardized. So Intel provides a lot of that as an example, right? So, Amazon and Google essentially are buying those pieces, and they're trying to eliminate the intermediary, like the IBM or the HP, right? And so they're eliminating a big part of that cost basis just by eliminating the middleman, so to speak. And so we are definitely going to see prices continue to be challenged to go lower and lower. And on top of that, what I just described, there's also the paradigm where they make money off of other services, right? Clearly, Google makes a lot of money off of advertisements.
Sure, yeah.
So do they actually need to make any money off of...
Interesting point.
off of IT at all? I mean, could they just give it away since they make their money off of marketing? And so, I think we're going to see pricing pressure continue for some time. I think we're going to see that pricing pressure on the manufacturers as well as, the services companies, kind of in different scenarios. So.
Yeah, no, great insight. So, just continuing on with Amazon for another second or two, one thing that Amazon has tried to do is build out an ecosystem of companies, or perhaps it happened fortuitously that, it just came about that these companies adopted AWS and, built out their offerings. But, in the last week or two, we've seen some announcements where Amazon's offering a solution, but a startup is also trying to offer a similar solution, like a data warehousing as a service on top of Amazon. How do you see the game playing out for startups and entrepreneurs that want to innovate? How do they navigate a relationship with companies like yours, with companies like an Amazon or a Google?
Oh, that's a $1 million question all by itself. If you think about the era of Microsoft, right, in the late 80s, in early 90s, Microsoft clearly was the dominant, player on the desktop, right?
Yeah. And by the way, I was there in those days. I spent a few years at Microsoft during those days.
Oh, so you have an appreciation for it. Right?
Exactly.
What did they do? They went out and kept acquiring those companies and bringing that technology and services in-house, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to see very much the same over time, right? Amazon and Google will continue to build out, Amazon in particular, will build out their services in the IT space more and more, and they will turn to these startups and acquire them where it makes sense. At least that's my expectation.
Yeah.
So if you look at the innovation engine, like my example of Microsoft, Amazon has introduced like 15 or 20 new service offerings in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So they're very innovative themselves, but then they will turn around and acquire, companies as it makes sense. And what you'll see is companies like Xerox and companies, like IBM and HP will do the same.
Yeah.
They will continue to acquire, innovative companies in the cloud space.
Yep.
I think you'll see less acquisitions, if I could phrase it this way, in the hardware space, right? So that's what I think.
Yeah. Okay, great. So thinking about entrepreneurs, and one of the big challenges for entrepreneurs early on is reaching their customers. How can entrepreneurs work with you or other companies, to reach their customers more efficiently? Is that something you're open to?
Actually, we are, and probably more now than we ever have been in the past. I think one of the changes that the cloud brings that a lot of people miss is the opportunity to go to markets that you previously couldn't go to. So if you think about Xerox, we've always done business with the Fortune 1000 and the Fortune 500, big outsourcing deals, whether it's business process or IT. But either way, sort of big transactions, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But if you think about the cloud, we can sell services, package, standardized services, by the drink, to very small companies. No reason why we can't do that. And so we no longer really have to focus on just kind of the big companies. We can focus on a very, very broad market now. And so now we don't have enough salespeople, frankly, to go out and touch all the companies that we could in fact sell to. And so we're very open to companies approaching us and saying, how about if I be your front end for some of your services? So they sell their services to the customers, and they sell some of our services to the customer, and they make a little money on our services as well. So it's a whole new discussion now in terms of how do we get to the customer.
Yeah. Great. So why don't we just take a moment or two and talk about big data in particular? There's been a lot of talk about big data in real time, the move away from batch. There's talk about using big data for improving our day-to-day health, tracking lots of data about what we eat or how how our health works, all sorts of different things. So what are some of the areas you're seeing big data have an impact in, and what do you think some of the challenges are over the next few years?
Oh, big data is it's a fascinating topic, and the analytics goes right along with it, right? And so if you think about, we've been in the information age now for the last 15 years. So, and if you think about the rate of information created, and I don't know the statistics, I kind of lost track, but we create as a society, we create more data in the last 6 months than all of civilization for the last 100 years or something. And so the amount of information available electronically has reached such immense proportions, it's not possible for anybody to process it without some kind of analytics tool, right?
Yeah.
And it's just not possible, right? And so that's the big data and the analytics discussion really is just a result of there's just so much information. And so, and it's great information. I mean, it's fabulous stuff. I mean, the amount of information on Google, as an example, is just mind-boggling. And so, if there's an intelligent way for companies and people to pull all that information together and to present it in an intelligent way, that's amazing, right? And so, what we're going to see is, whether it's in the retail space or the energy space or the healthcare space, we're going to see the available information presented much better than we've ever had before. I think the obvious answer in the United States is healthcare. Healthcare is such a massive industry. There's so much money being poured into healthcare. And there's so many opportunities from the government as well as from startups that we're just going to see amazing information in the healthcare space.
That's great. Well, Ken, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. Are there any other thoughts you'd like to leave my audience with about Xerox, big data, or entrepreneurship, or just any area that comes to mind?
Yes, thanks. Just one. I think 2013 is going to be an exciting year. We've been going around with big data and analytics for some time. I think 2013 is the year. So I'd say watch for announcements there from both Xerox as well as from some of the startups.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.